Hey, Zach.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good, good, good.
Sorry, I've been like go 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 this afternoon. So like,
Yeah,
um,
no problem. I just want to say that my update will be fairly brief, like a minute or two. I don't
okay,
have an
cool.
extensive amount, so I didn't know if you had anything else to share. And apparently, there's a
Okay,
back meeting tonight too at the same time.
yeah. So basically, what I wanted to do was just go through that the kind of final list um, with you guys. I don't know if is Nana able to make it.
She'll join. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, basically go through the final list that we came up with last time, and then kind of make a plan for how we'll get the data and who we need to get the data from.
Okay. Do you have the list?
I do. I do. I was just going
Okay.
to share my screen and we could go through it together.
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool. Oh,
Also, is there any way to dial in um, Helen possibly into the Zoom?
yeah. I was gonna. I had asked Bashir to call her to give her a heads up.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm going to call her now and hopefully. And I think one thing that I want to do now that I have figured out the reimbursement process, this is still using my Howard account, my Zoom
Yeah,
account.
yeah,
So I would definitely like to move
yeah,
on.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
There we go. There we go, Helen. But there is a way to use. There is a way to dial people in on Google Meet, but I don't. That's
Yeah.
a shift for people, so I don't. I'll bring it up to see how folks feel about it, but.
202-686-0522. I cannot come to the phone now. Please leave a message if you can.
Hey, Helen, Karthik here. If you can just give me a shout back when you get this, that'd be great. 202-684-6252. Thanks so much. Yeah, I think it's getting a bit hard to get Helen
Yeah. Yeah.
generally.
I think she's also having some
But if she
computer
can,
issues.
oh
So
yes, okay. Kelly is here. Adrian is here. Okay. Buddy is usually here by now too. Buddy responded yes to the meeting. Hello, everybody. We'll get started. We're actually running a little bit late, but let us wait until give it a few more minutes while we're waiting for Buddy, and hopefully I'll try Helen again. I tried to get in touch with Thomas as well, but he's also difficult to track down.
Hello, this is Helen at 202-686-0522. I cannot come to the phone.
Hello. Welcome everyone. We are just waiting for folks. I'm going to give Buddy a call because he's usually here on time. So haven't been able to reach Helen. I don't have Buddy's phone number either. I only have Helen's phone number. I guess we can go ahead and maybe we'll give them one more minute before we go ahead and get started.
Is there a number to dial out, Karthik? Do you have that? Or to dial into for this Zoom?
Okay, I think we should probably just go ahead and get started. Let me just send Buddy a quick email to, before we do, sorry. Okay. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and just get started with introductions, and then we can jump into our meeting, and hopefully we'll have Buddy or Helen join. So yeah, I'll just kind of kick it off. My name is Karthik Balasubramanian. I'm the chair of the Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Council. Let me just admit Nana here. Welcome to the July meeting. Yeah, so if we can just go around with folks introducing themselves, and then we can hop into our pretty short agenda. Oh yes, Buddy is here. Hello, perfect. Okay. Okay. Yes. So yeah. So why don't I turn it over maybe to Zach first while Buddy gets set up.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Zach Smith, District Department of Transportation, also liaison to the MAAC.
Is it me? Can folks hear me? Oh, you can't. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Were folks able to? So Zach, were folks able to hear Zach? There's something wrong with me.
Yes.
Then. Okay. So why don't we then go to Nana?
Good afternoon, everyone. Nana Bailey Thomas, Chief Transportation Equity and Inclusion
There
Officer.
we go. That's fine.
Karthik, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, apologies. Yeah, sorry about that. My tech fail. Cool. Okay, so then why don't we just kind of popcorn it over to, yeah, just so Zach and Nana. Buddy, can you introduce yourself?
It looks like he's muted.
Yep, he's muted.
Hey, buddy, I think you might be. Yeah, you are muted. I can ask him to unmute. And maybe Bushira, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, wonderful.
Yes, sir.
Okay, here we go. Did that,
Oh, okay.
is that okay?
Yep, we got Buddy too. So yeah,
Got
so
you.
maybe Bushira, can you introduce yourself and then pass
Okay.
it to Buddy?
All right.
Sure, yes. My name is Bashir Musa. I am the administrative assistant for MAAC. Yeah, that's all I can say.
Okay.
Oh, I do want to mention Helen said she won't be able to make it this evening. She had some other
Got it.
plans to do one.
Okay.
Okay. Buddy Moore, member of the MAAC. And let me see, I'm calling on, is that Kelly? Kelly?
Hi there. Yeah, so Kelly Mack, and I'm a DC resident and wheelchair user.
Oh, great.
Perfect. And then Adrian, I think I saw.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm Adrian. I'm a volunteer. I live in the District of Columbia, and I had reached out to some people on City Council about issues regarding safety on the sidewalks with scooters and electronic scooters and bikes and things of that nature, and they sort of connected me to the MAAC group to see if I could work with them to try to resolve some of these issues, and I guess just be involved with an issues of people with disabilities in general. I'm a civil rights attorney and I work for the federal government.
Great.
Great, thanks, Adrian. And then I think we've just got Susie left. Oh no, I'm sorry, Heather is here. Heather, would you mind introducing yourself?
Heather Foote, DC Pedestrian Advisory Council, and work on older adult transportation. Unfortunately, I can only join you till 6 because the back meeting is tonight, Bicycle Advisory Council. Thank you.
Okay.
Cool. And then we've got Susie.
Good afternoon. I'm Susie McFadden Westburn with the DC Office of Disability Rights, and I am the ADA Compliance Specialist for Public Works.
Okay.
Great.
Great.
Okay, so basically the main thing that I wanted to do today was kind of, so we'd spent some time at the last meeting coming up with a list of metrics that we wanted to put on an inequity scorecard that basically looked at kind of, okay, here are the things that we want to track, kind of key progress indicators, and basically have a set of numbers that would kind of be our North Star, where we want to go. Kind of these are things that we really care about, and how do we start measuring them and ideally kind of start tracking them to start seeing if they get better, or kind of inequity is on the decline, which is what we're hoping to do and kind of what we're all working for. So, but before that, I'll pass it to Zach. I know he had just a quick update, and then we can hop in.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a really brief update. You know, we are still gathering information on what existing data that we have at DDOT, just to make sure that we can provide you with the information that you requested. I will say that if the data is not currently publicly available, we'll have to work internally and with the MAAC members to get an MOU or an agreement on what exactly we are able to share and how it will be used. And we can talk about that in further detail once we get to that point. But yeah, looking forward to the discussion on what the data metrics are that you want to finalize.
Okay, perfect. And yeah, and I'm hoping that this can be kind of a living list too. So if we find, hey, actually this isn't the best metric, then we can make a change, or hey, we should start adding this thing, or this is not relevant anymore. But I think this is kind of just to get it started. We can start somewhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and then we can go from here. So, and I'll read these out too if you're having trouble reading these. So the first thing that we had talked about was audible walk signals. So there are kind of two types of roads that are particularly important for audible walk signals, and those are the kind of big roads. So DDOT classifies these big roads, or what they call arterial roads, into two buckets. One, principal arterials, and the second is minor arterials. So I started going through this, but I wanted to kind of, we can kind of work on these together in real time as well. But I wanted to start off with this one. So if we have a key metric for audible walk signals being the percent of principal arterial intersections without audible walk signals, what we would need to start tracking this are, one, the list of principal arterial intersections. So where does a principal arterial road, or kind of the biggest road that we have, where does that intersect with other streets? And then the list of principal arterial intersections with an audible walk signal installed. So with these two data points, we can now say, okay, this is where we are. Let's say there are 100 intersections or it's actually probably more than that, maybe 200 principal arterial intersections, and these are 50 that have audible walk signals installed. So that number, that percent of principal arterial intersections number, would be 25%. So that is kind of, that's the, and I have the kind of big list coming, but I just wanted to kind of stop here and just ask, does that make sense to folks? Do people feel good about this?
Yeah, okay. Sounds good to me.
Perfect. Yep. And then similarly, the next level is percent of minor arterial intersections with an audible walk signal. This is still an arterial road, still big, but not as big. But still kind of quite important. So this is actually one thing that I wanted to zoom in on too, is there are other types of streets, what they call collector streets and neighborhood streets, kind of much smaller streets. Neighborhood intersections in general don't have stop signals, so they wouldn't have audible walk signals, but I think sometimes collector streets do have stop signals. But I thought, just to not make the perfect the enemy of the good, just to focus on these two big types of intersections, just to focus on arterial intersections. And does that sound good, folks?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry, Karthik. My only thought is, if there are any that are not, that are reported regular problems, maybe those should be like a special case to be included. I don't know if that's the case, but just a thought, if there are, I don't know, sometimes random intersections that aren't that big can be more dangerous or are reported by residents. Just a thought.
Yeah, so I mean, one catch-all thing is basically percent of non-arterial. This way we can catch everything, because we basically will have major or principal arterial, minor arterial, and then everything else. So percent of non-arterial intersections without audible walk signal. So and in this way, what we do is we capture everything else. So we'll have the entire universe. So here we'll just say non-arterial. Is that, I think that addresses your concern, Kelly.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and that now we're totally comprehensive. So I'll pause here. So to our DDOT folks, is this clear?
I guess the question is, so you're just looking for the list of intersections and then list of intersections with audible walk signals?
Exactly. And
Okay.
the only additional thing is basically classifying each intersection as a major, minor, or non-arterial.
Okay. And then once you have the list of those intersections and the locations of those walk signals, is the MAAC going to develop that percentage?
Yeah. That's fine. I can do that pretty easily.
Okay. And that's what's going to go, that's what you're going to report, that
Exactly.
what that percentage is. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So then this is something that came up after, many times now. And Kelly, you had an experience that that is kind of far too common, is where we've got closed sidewalks, and these sidewalks are either closed by permit or so a permit is being issued for a contractor to close a sidewalk, which is supposed to happen only in a last resort, or the permit is issued to provide a safe accommodation, but that safe accommodation is not followed. So actually, maybe Kelly, can you just give a brief overview of kind of what you encountered near your house when you're trying to catch the bus?
Yeah, sure. So, I just out of the blue, I think on a Tuesday morning, I was going to a medical appointment and I discovered that where I needed to cross in order to get to the bus, the ramps were all basically chopped up and a bunch of concrete that was completely impassable. And I was especially surprised because I know not all corners have this, but every corner actually has 2 ramps. So it would have been possible to do one and leave the other. But in this case, 4 ramps on both sides of the street were all out of commission. And I hadn't seen any signs or warning, and there was no sign there. There were just kind of orange cones, and I didn't see the work actively. And so I was kind of having to go from driveway to driveway and dodge traffic to get to the bus stop. And that was for about a week. And during the whole process. And I've had these issues before with my wheelchair trying to cross at various places. And I've always reported it and I've never gotten a quick response. And for me, like, not being able to cross the road is an emergency. It's not a, we'll get back to you in a year kind of situation. So that's the experience that I've had most recently, but I've had it a few times in recent years. So just hoping that I understand that the contractor was approached and fined, but it would be great to get ahead of this problem. And I don't know if they're provided best practices on what to do, or if there's some sort of public notice that we could make, or, I don't know what's practical, but not being able to cross the street safely was not practical for me. And, I'm not the only wheelchair user in the neighborhood. So, or in the city. So hopefully, like, we could come up with some ideas for how to make this a better process, because I love a new ramp, but I the old one was working and I really was feeling in danger when I was trying to get around my neighborhood.
Yeah. So this is so I've kind of struggled a little bit with like what the metric is that we want here, because so this one I think is clear, because it's like, hey, this is totally in VDOT's control of, like, we want to be tracking, of the construction permits that they're issuing, want to make sure that they're very, very, very vanishingly small amount of them are actually closing a sidewalk. And this came up in our discussion during the, after the Rhode Island tragedy, when DDOT had permitted the closure of a sidewalk and then someone got killed. So that is clear. The kind of the other issue of when DDOT has put in place a safe accommodation clause in their traffic control plan, but it's being violated by the contractor. What exactly is the thing that we want to measure here? Because we won't be able to measure, how often it's being violated, because we'll only have a imperfect picture of the total number of these of the violations based on people reporting. But
oh, hi, Karthik. I was just going to say, I agree. I think we've got to remember this will be a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
So this won't necessarily be real-time info. And I'm not sure if this particular metric would get to a sidewalk that was closed for construction where the contract didn't follow what the agreed upon safe accommodations plan was.
Yeah.
Is there anything to track maybe complaints though? I mean, I might have been the only person to complain, but you would get one. But the other thing I'm wondering is, are there, I don't know, like spot checks by DOT on these projects that are happening, that you could randomly pick, hey, we're going to check out this contractor to see if they're doing it right. Kind of a secret ramp shopper sort of thing.
Yeah.
And maybe some data on those spot checks could be useful for measuring how contractors are doing.
Yeah.
Right. I see what you're saying with the spot checks. I guess I would say that, when we do receive a complaint, the public space inspection team goes out, and I believe in that instance, Kelly, they were responsive to your request. I don't know if there is information about the amount of times the contractors checked or what that would do. But in terms of when a sidewalk is closed, yes, the public should be properly notified.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that I've found is that if you're a constant user of that particular street and it's closed off, you are more apt to complain. But if you're just an intermittent user, chances are you're not going to complain. So I think the complaints that you get, I think, should be magnified in many, many times, because chances are there are others who do not use that particular street that often will not report it. Yeah.
So I wonder if we have, like, what if we say something like this, like the percent of safe accommodations or complaints for safe accommodations, or complaints of safe accommodation violations that are addressed within 24 hours. The reason I say addressed here is that it's like kind of hard to get a sense of like when something is permitted by DDOT versus when they're not. So like, this is what Chief Collins mentioned, was like, hey, somebody might think something's a safe accommodations violation, but it might not be. Kelly, like your example is like very obviously a safe accommodations violation. Like in no world would DDOT have ever permitted like someone to close all 4 ramps. So that was like very obviously one. But I wonder if, because being addressed could be, it could just be, this is not a safe accommodations violation. So I wonder if this is like, okay, now it's just the percent of complaints of safe accommodations violations that are addressed within 24 hours, whether that's either rectifying the situation or whether it's going back to the constituent and saying, hey, this is not a safe accommodations violation, or issuing a stop work order or otherwise getting the contractor to fix the situation. How do folks feel about that?
I guess the only thing I would say with that is we should be, one, going back to what I said earlier about making sure that we have the data that we can share about that, and how just making sure that safe accommodations violations are being tracked that way. And I'm not sure if this should necessarily be a part of this scorecard, or if there's another way that the MAAC could work to address this.
Yeah, so this is a great question. So in order to execute on this, what we would need is the number of complaints of safe accommodations, and it's not clear that does this list exist anywhere?
That we would have to talk to the appropriate team internally about.
Because if it doesn't exist, then I totally agree. It's just like, okay, well, we want it, but we can't, this data doesn't actually exist, and maybe we should figure out a way to track it instead of actually being on the scorecard. But maybe what we can do is just like, we can keep it on this list, and then if it can't be done, then we can maybe for next meeting, Zach, do you think you can ask around and see if this list exists for in the public space operations world?
I think it doesn't seem like that list exists, and so we can't create data if it's not already out in the public. Yeah.
That it doesn't.
Even like 311 would track those.
Again, if it's not already public, I can't say whether I can bring that information back to the next meeting.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, not bring it back to the next meeting, of basically just finding out, like, for sure from that team, does the data exist or not?
That I would have to check.
Cool. Yeah, that's what I'm asking, is if you can check by the next meeting and just ask them if it exists. Cool. Okay, so so we can kind of mark this as, hey, we're not sure about this. We don't know about that one. Another thing we had talked about was sight lines. So DC requires a 25-foot buffer between, it's actually both in the DEM and in the statute, for 25 feet between parking and crosswalks, both crosswalks at an intersection and then unsignalized crosswalks. So this question of, okay, what percentage of crosswalks are not in compliance with DC sightline status, DC sightline statutes, slash sightline laws / regulations. So this one, what we would require would be, here is this would just be a list of all crosswalks, and then the list of all crosswalks that are not in compliance with statute / the DEM, which is the Design and Engineering Manual, the DDOT standard. And I think these are actually two different standards too. But one is a law, one is a regulation. So I think probably the one that's the law, or whichever, I'm sure the traffic engineers like have some sort of standard. So whether they follow the law or their own regulations. But yeah, this one would be these two data points.
And the only, what I would add about that too is again, with any of this data that we're collecting, someone would have to collect it first. So that's
So you
something to
don't think that
consider
this
too.
is so okay. But you don't think that someone might already have this?
I can't say for sure, but I would, yeah.
Okay,
I can't say for sure.
cool. So then, oh yeah, okay. So we've got, last time we had a traffic engineer who was not really familiar with the kind of disabled experience, and this is the suggestion that Helen brought forward, which I really liked. Basically, the percent of traffic engineers who have traversed an arterial intersection with a, or actually we have 3 of these. So with a
blindfold?
blindfold, but then we also had a manual wheelchair.
Okay.
So we'll start with that one, with a manual wheelchair.
Yeah,
So this, I think this would require what we would require here is obviously we don't want individual people. So I think all we would need here is the number of traffic engineers and the number of traffic engineers who have traversed an arterial road with a manual wheelchair.
All right. So good afternoon, Karthik. This is Nana.
Yeah.
Hi, I hope you can hear me. So I want us to be clear. We do not have that data. That data does not exist. I'm not even going to pretend that it exists. So again, if we're talking about a scorecard and we're basing that scorecard on the data, we need to talk about the data. This, and this is one that you and I have discussed privately. We've somewhat discussed publicly. This is not a requirement, right? So if this does in fact happen, that's something that we're going to have a agreement with the MAAC that we're doing this. But I understand the ask. I understand the want. You and I have had robust discussions about this, but this in my opinion should not be on the scorecard.
So yeah, I think so. This is where, so I think this is one of those data points that we can actually pretty easily get the number of traffic engineers, and we can pretty easily have a self-report form for the number of people who we don't have to do independent verification. People can just say yes or no. But I think getting yeah, go ahead.
So I'm going to interject. I'm sorry. So because I know this data does not exist. I used to be the FOIA officer. What you're asking for is to create some data in this regard. This has not happened. And this I'm gonna push back just a smidgen about it being a data point. We understand that this is an ask and a want by the MAAC. We have relayed this information to the now acting chief engineer, but I don't think this is an appropriate data point, if that makes sense. The data does not exist on this, I can be honest. And I think this is something that should be outside of the scorecard. Because basically what you're asking is how many engineers actually did this versus how many crosswalks had engineers that actually did this activity. So I want us to talk a little bit about this, just because you're putting a requirement on the district of their employees that I don't know is necessarily acceptable, just because we may have engineers that have reasonable accommodations that can't undergo this specific task, right? So I'm going to ask that we table this. I'm not telling you no. What I'm saying is I think we should table this because I don't know if this should be on the scorecard.
So the reason that I think this is so important is that these are the people who make decisions with multi-million-dollar projects. And I think
I don't disagree.
And like our experience, like the experience that we've had so far with the traffic engineers has been very negative. in kind of their, basically what we got from the last traffic engineer was, oh, we'll, quote unquote, comply with all federal guidelines without even any sort of, and that is wildly unacceptable. And I think this is why I think this is so important to actually collect this data, which I don't think is that difficult to collect. We can just,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So it's, and I think here it's this like, number of traffic engineers, this is just a counting exercise. And then this is the number of traffic engineers who's traversed a arterial road with a manual wheelchair. This is just a yes or no, like, have you done this or not? A survey to everyone.
So Karthik, I hear you, and I think your point is extremely valid. I disagree that it should be a data point on our scorecard that DDOT is working with you as the MAAC on. I think this is something that we can use as a project and a pilot, but you're asking that we put a new work requirement on engineers. We have not changed position description. Well, you are. And so we haven't changed position descriptions. There may be people with disabilities that can't actually do this activity. So I'm gonna push back just a smidgen on this one, because I think your point is valid. I don't think it should be a matrix in the scorecard, because what you're requiring is every single engineer potentially to have gone through this exercise. I understand that there was a uncomfortable or not comfortable exchange with one of the traffic engineers, because I was on that call, right? And so, but I want us to be very clear about we want to cooperate and be a partner in the data collection. This seems more like a policy issue or a policy matter and not a data matter. So I'm going to ask that we have a few more offline discussions about this, because what you're going to be asking is that there's a new work requirement put on our engineers, all of them, to do this. So I'm pushing back a little bit on this one. I would like for us to have some more like kind of offline discussions.
Well, I guess another point, Karthik, would be the question of how many, ask of an engineer, have you escorted a person in a wheelchair across an intersection?
Yeah, that's true.
I understand that too. I understand that too. But again, what you're asking for is a new work requirement to be placed on the engineers. And I think that's going to require a different level than just a data card data. So Karthik, I have to be honest with you. I don't disagree with your perspective on this. What I disagree is, I don't know if this is data that needs to be on the scorecard, because not every engineer works on arterial. We have other aspects of transportation they work on. So not every engineer is required to do this either.
But because I guess my question is, who determines, and I guess you have those nanosection countdown signals, who determined the length of those signals?
So this is exactly why I think this is so important, is that, like, if this is being done by some formula, which it is,
so there's a standard for timing. That's what you're asking. You're asking what's the standard of timing, right? I hear you.
Yes.
And so, but the issue then becomes, if there's a regular standard, and do we need to exceed the standard?
Yes.
And I can be honest, one of my advocate points has been, the minimum is not good enough sometimes. Yes, you've met the minimum, but let's go above and beyond. And so, but I'm going to push back on this one as a data point, because again, I think you're putting more requirements as a work rule, which we're going to have further discussions with DCHR. Position descriptions have to change. Like, it's just not a matter of how many people have done this and here's the data set. I'm not saying your concern's not valid, but we need to talk a little bit further about this and in the implementation.
I'm not, so I'm open to kind of holding this back from this from this month's like version of this. It's just that I don't like, this is something that, like, I can't imagine a world in which we would want to be paying people who don't have this experience. So especially people who are, maybe this specifically applies to people who are, who don't have the experience of being a DC resident. But basically, like people who drive in their cars from some other state, get paid by us to design for us. Like they.
Oh, I think that's a different issue. So respectfully, I think that's a different issue. And I think you're projecting some stereotypes, because someone can be an ally and understand the requirements of timing and everything else. And it doesn't matter where they live. It doesn't matter if they're the resident or not. It's a matter of, do you understand that your minimum requirements of a timing signal may not be enough time? You may have to look at additional time. I just don't want us. So this is what I'm willing to go off of the record on, and so that we can further discuss, because I understand what the ask is, but I'm asking that you understand as an agency, there are other implications there for this particular requirement, and we're asked to create data. So let's have this discussion a little bit further and more robust, but I understand the pilot and I understand the exercise, and I don't think anyone's opposed to it. But when you start asking for a scorecard on how many engineers went through this, that's where I think you may be crossing a line.
Yeah, and okay, so and I'm
that goes beyond data, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm open to having this discussion. I mean, I do like if we want to change the JDs, which I think probably is a good start actually to change the JD of what the minimum requirements to be a traffic engineer is in the city. I think we should have that.
Do you say JD or PD? JD means Juris Doctorate. What do you mean? I'm sorry.
JD job description.
Okay, so we call them position descriptions. They're PDs.
PDs, sure, yeah, change the PDs.
I was a JD before I passed the bar, so I was like, wait a minute, wait, okay. Yeah. So Karthik, I know that you are very passionate about this particular data point, but I want you to understand it goes beyond the mere data. That you are now asking, right, and then you're asking for every engineer to go through this. Not every engineer does traffic design, right? So I want us to sparse this out a little bit, and I think this is probably going to be more of a collaboration between DDOT and the MAAC on taking people through a training exercise of what this means.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think there might be people who self-select out. Is this like, well, like, if I can't meet this requirement because I'm not going to do this for some, personal belief that, I don't think that we should be slowing cars down. This is one of those ways that I think we should be pushing people out who really don't belong in this profession.
Okay, but I think that crosses a legal line that we might want to talk about offline. You can't just push people out of their jobs. So we're not going to do the propaganda today. We're going to go ahead and we're talk about what is the legitimate data point that we want to correct and connect.
Yeah.
Okay. Karthik, I hear you. I love the advocacy. I love the ulterior argument. I got to push back a little bit on this one. I wasn't going to let Zach do it, so I had to step in. So I'm going to go ahead and go on mute again. But I'm with you on this. I'm not with you on the data point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm willing to have kind of one or two more discussions on it, but I do want to see progress on this. So like that,
you can see progress, but I'm pushing back a little bit just because there's other implications legally for us as an agency, and not to mention the fact that we're creating data that FOIA doesn't require us to do. So let's go ahead and go offline on this one, and I'll turn the mic back over to you as the chair.
Great. Yeah, okay, so we can put a pin in this and come back to it in the September meeting. And that will give us August to kind of figure out kind of how we make progress on this particular kind of manual wheelchair. Your suggestion, Buddy, on people who have escorted someone with a disability, people who have a blindfold and earplugs, kind of those people who have traversed DC arterial with someone with a blindfold or with a disability. Yeah, so we'll come back to this in mark this as waiting. We'll come back to this in September.
So Karthik, I just want to point out another aspect of this. So if we're taking our employees through this exercise and one of them gets injured or killed by a car, who's going to take the liability on this?
Well, I mean, people have to go to and from their work sites all the time. I mean, this is.
I understand, but I'm just saying, but no,
Yeah.
but this is a specific activity that you're asking us to do. I just think that this is bigger than the data point than what you're pointing out. So
yeah, I mean,
really
we
want to
require people to come to work, and this is just, you know, like if we require people to come to work, then they could also get injured coming to work or some offsite
This
training.
is a different, but we're requiring them to do this on the job. Coming to work, there's, you know, whether it's before work or frolicking or whatever the case is, that's a different standard. So let's talk this one out, because this has some liability issues too.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we have like people who are kind of people have liability all the time, or you know, if someone was our sanitation engineers, for example, like if they get injured, which they perfectly well could be, you know, there's some responsibility, and kind of same way here is this like.
But that's in their job description, though. That's why I'm saying we need to really talk about this. If you are actually asking us to change job descriptions, that requires a different level. So I think it goes beyond the data point.
Yeah, and maybe that's this, we can have that discussion of changing the job descriptions. So we can,
yeah, we'll include the Department of Human Resources in that one.
Great. And that's where I mean, I really like. I mean, I think kind of fundamentally, I believe that like our people should be working for us, not against us, and that's essentially what we've been seeing. Yeah.
Karthik, I respectfully agree with that. I agree with your perception. I just don't agree with the method. And so I think my issue is I agree that we should be collaborative in our scorecard, but we need to be collecting data. And what you're asking for us to do is create a whole different data point involving human beings on data we don't collect and we don't do as a requirement. So I'm just saying that I don't think we should be couching this issue within the scorecard. I think we can try to do it someplace else, but not within the scorecard.
Yeah, I think we disagree on that, but we can continue the
discussion. We respectfully disagree.
Yeah. So cool. And then the last thing, this is kind of this is from DPW, so we'll have to coordinate with DPW on this, is the number of cars with at least $1,000 in moving violations that have not yet been seized by September 30th, 2024. So this would
Karthik, on that one, you said DPW. Are you sure you meant DPW and not DMV?
This is DPW. They're the ones with the or it's actually both. So the data, the first one will be a DMV data point of number of vehicles with at least $1,000 in moving violations. That's a DMV data point. But then, but the tow status or the seizure status, that the DPW does the seizures. So that is who have not yet been seized. That's a,
and we can help facilitate, but we can't guarantee we're going to get that information.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I think that's, you know, we had some other ones that around bus ridership. We had talked about safe accommodations, but I think these are, oh yeah, we also had these hardened daylighting infrastructure. So the percent of tier 1, 2, and 3 high injury corridor streets that do not have hardened daylight infrastructure. So this one would be, this one is, we can probably just start with tier 1 high injury corridor streets. So the number, or actually the list of tier 1 injury corridor streets, and then the list of tier 1 corridor injury streets without hardened daylight infrastructure.
And again, just to the point on the hardened daylight infrastructure, it's a matter of making sure that we have that data, making sure that it's been collected and properly collected. So I can't, again, I can't promise that exists.
Now, can you explain what that is? I'm not familiar with that term.
Yeah, so daylighting infrastructure, and this kind of this goes along with the crosswalks, is basically, are there any obstructions? So daylighting is the term used to make sure that driver visibility is unobstructed by anything. For a certain, so like, you know, when you approach an intersection, your or any sort of turn that a driver might make, they have total visibility for people, you know, for other cars, pedestrians, turning right or left or going straight.
Okay.
And hardening means it's not just a baller, it's not just a plastic thing that can be run over. It's actually something that that actually keeps people from, or keeps, you know, this could be like planters or concrete, other kind of concrete barriers, anything that actually like makes that is, I think, what DDOT calls permanent rather than anything temporary or plastic.
Okay.
So I think that's, okay, so here's our final list. So we've got principal arterial intersections, minor arterial intersections, for audible walk signals, non-arterial intersections with audible walk signals, percent of construction permits that close sidewalks, percent of tier 1 high injury network corridor streets that don't have hardened infrastructure, and then we have our crosswalks that are not in compliance with the DEM. Here we go. There we go. List of crosswalks and list of crosswalks not in compliance with DEM. Yeah, and then we had our hardened data light infrastructure. Yes, we're gonna wait on, we'll see if the public space operations people have a record of the number of safe accommodations violations, and then this data point too, so we'll wait on this. We'll wait pending more conversation offline about our traffic engineers. And then I'll also email the DPW and DMV about this kind of the seizing the cars with at least $1,000 of moving violations. So these are all. So yeah, so this is our list. I will.
So Karthik, what I would say again with the list, I think there are other issues too that we should talk a little bit more about, especially with the hardened daylighting infrastructure and the crosswalks not in compliance with statutes DEM. We just got to make sure that we have appropriate data and that we're providing what we can provide. So I don't want to make any promises or assurances that we can have all of this information and that we can share all of this information too.
Cool. Yeah. So we'll maybe by the August meeting, like you'll have a better sense of kind of what of this list we have and what we don't have.
I think by the August meeting, I think we'll have some other conversations, just diving a little bit deeper into this list to see what we can provide.
Okay, cool. All right. So yeah. Anything else that folks wanted to bring up? Any other things? You know, Adrian, I know kind of we had talked about the scooters on the sidewalk, and this is kind of where is this like, you know, how do we actually capture that in a metric? I think it's difficult. But are there any other? Is there anything else that folks wanted to bring up as a possible metric that we should be measuring?
I have one.
Yeah.
In regards to Adrian's point, I don't know if we'll be able to actually capture how many scooters on the sidewalk, but maybe we might be able to capture data as to how many incidents have been reported about scooters on the sidewalk, if that makes sense.
The only thing I would say with that is we don't have very good reliable data on incidents with scooters and sidewalks, so I don't want to make that promise either with that particular issue.
Yeah, because how would they, like, unless it's like something being forced, like something that's actually being, you know, looked into as like a regulation or some sort of law, like how and why would they track that?
Right, because we're not the enforcement agency with that, and again, scooters are allowed on sidewalks outside of the downtown business district.
Yep.
So, yeah, but I'm totally open. I like, could it, is it dead?
Karthik, can I chime in?
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's a different discussion that we need to talk about. Maybe how do we do enforcement, or how do we cut down on the incidents of individuals with scooters on sidewalks? I wonder if that's a different incident or separate reporting we need to kind of track and maybe monitor.
Yeah.
Versus a data point on the scorecard, because the ultimate goal is for us to come up with a scorecard, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess of this particular, I think the ultimate goal of I think of this meeting is to come up with a scorecard, but I definitely don't want to push off discussions about things that are important to folks. Like
agreed, absolutely.
So yeah. So yeah, maybe what we can do is like we'll just have maybe we can I think it's Aaron Goldbeck, is that his name?
It is. I will say Aaron's out on paternity leave until September.
Okay, so maybe what we can do is, so we can ideally like invite him to some meeting post September, and just have a conversation with him. Is like, okay, what is, you know, like, what is the reporting mechanism now? What should it look like in the future? Or what is, you know, and what's being done to make this problem, to address this issue. So maybe kind of the data, or the kind of the action item here is inviting Aaron to meeting after September to discuss.
So let's just see if that data exists, though. I think that's the bigger issue. And if it does exist, where is it stored and kept? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll bring up the point again that we're not the enforcement agency. So if you are injured, whether it's in a car accident or by a scooter, you would call the police. You wouldn't necessarily go to one. Like that would.
We could ask if MPD has this. We could ask. So we could just
I guess that's where it comes back to the issue. Like, if, again, like what sort of crime would that be? Like, would it be battery or something? Because unless the person actually meant to do it, if it was an accident, we kind of open a can of worms. But I don't know why MPD would even be tracking that either. If it was actually like a law there that said it's illegal to ride scooters, and you know they were arresting people or they were getting tickets or something, then I can kind of see them having numbers. But outside of that, I'm not sure how you could gather those numbers or exactly how to capture those incidents. Unless,
unfortunately, it may be captured as like a motor vehicle incident. So just like if there's a hit and run, or if there's like they were just hit by a car, it may be captured in that way. It may not necessarily be captured with a crime that has an intent, if that makes sense.
Maybe the number of complaints of scooter collision /
on the sidewalk.
Yeah, because I'm sure it's laws for like hit and runs with cars, like, because that's a common thing. But I guess the thing with the scooters is kind of like its own little entity. So, I mean, so like I said, I don't know. Maybe they could be categorizing them in the same, but I imagine that a hit and run actually has a statute or some sort of law that's in the books, as opposed to, I'm not sure that exists for a scooter. Like,
it depends on the circumstances. I used to work in the Attorney General's office that did criminal. So it depends on the circumstances. Some are characterized as intent, some are characterized as not intent.
Like
It's
negligence.
an accident, so.
Well, negligence is civil, so that's more like a.
I see.
Or you
I see.
take
That's
somebody
correct.
to the
But
court
that's not
to
what
sue
we're
somebody.
tracking. We're tracking
Like
incidents
a
that may
crime,
have
like you
occurred
said, a
with
hit and run.
scooters.
So yeah, like I said, I could see a statute like for cars, but like, I mean, I don't know. Like I'd have to look at the statutes themselves. I mean, it's hard to say guessing or whatever. I need to actually look up the statute to see is there anything like that on the books, because outside of that, I don't see how they would have any numbers on that.
But they may have numbers on accidents, right? And then if they've categorized them as accidents involving scooters, then we'd have to look and say, are they accidents involving scooters on the sidewalk?
Right. So again, like an accident to me is like a civil type thing. It's like a car accident or things of that nature where, people had accidents as opposed to, and like I said, I just have to see the laws and see how they're written and sort of look into it to see exactly how it'll be tracked. But, I guess my main thing is I potentially like to see some sort of law on the books regarding the scooters, or like some sort of policy regarding the scooters so that they aren't on the sidewalks.
So one thing.
So you're not concerned about the data points in the scorecard?
I mean, I guess that could be like used as evidence potentially, like if you were to make a law or, go to council and say, this is what we have in mind, and sort of use that as some sort of evidence, I guess. I mean, I guess that could potentially be something. But what I'm saying is it needs to be a law in general, sort of like, to have something there so that, if this law is violated or something is violated, then you do have those numbers or something on the books regarding that nature.
So it might be better to see if there's data and then maybe push for legislation if that needs to happen.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Question. Maybe there should be an item here about complaints about blocking by scooters, because I think there is a law that they're supposed to be in certain places.
Block 2, yeah.
And blocking, I mean, I've made 311 complaints, so I would think that they would have a number of,
If there's a 311, that is definitely tracked then. Okay. So
right. So I don't know I can't remember how they filed it, but I complained about scooters being parked that blocked my entry to my building where I live. And they had people, I think they alerted the companies and then the companies came, but that should be tracked. And I think there are rules or regulations at the very least about where scooters are allowed to be left. So complaints about that, right, those kinds of complaints could be helpful.
Cool. Yeah, I think
so it should be scooters blocking the public right of way.
Yeah.
So this is great because so if it's in 311, we can definitely like that is tracked, which is great. So a number of complaints of scooters blocking public right of way, and then I think this would probably be is someone filling in for Aaron when he's gone? Zach, do you know?
I'll have to get the person's name.
Okay, because if there's some sort, I don't know if they're tracking this, but if we can say percent of scooters blocking the public right of way that are addressed in 24 hours. And then here, the second data point here that would be required to do this would be number of that are addressed by these within 24 hours. I think we can make, I kind of remember them saying there was some standard, some like service level agreement that they had in the permitting process, but I don't remember, but maybe this is something that that they can, Aaron's kind of replacement or fill in might have. So, but yeah, I think this is a good way to address this kind of blocking issue at least. Cool. Anything else that folks wanted to bring up? Anything outside of the context of the scorecard? We have made some progress on, oh yes, I think folks have received emails from Bushira. So please be responsive to that. We have some updates on our website, so that's great. Buddy, if you can send a picture of yourself
Okay,
for the website.
I will.
Alan, and oh yeah, we should need to get in touch with Thomas as well to get a bio. We don't have, and then yeah, this kind of a question mark, and then yeah, our government members, if you could do the same, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
And then we've got, yeah, we've got minutes up, which is great. I don't think that our recordings are up yet. Yeah, and then we'll have our resolution on the requesting the DPW to hit the car seizure standard for $1,000. We'll put that resolution text up as well. But we're making progress on the website, so that's good news.
Okay.
So yeah, with that, anyone else kind of want to bring up anything, anything at all, anything else?
No.
Okay, great. All right, well, take care, everyone. I hope everyone has a good rest of your July, and then we will.
You too.
Yep.
We'll reconvene in August.
Yep. Okay.
Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Take care,
See you
everyone.
all later.
Hey, Karthik, do you want to stay on this line for a moment?
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Thanks. Let me
Okay.
log off. Thanks.
All right. Have a great week, everyone.
Okay, Nana. See everybody.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's see. I need to get out of here.
Hey, Karthik, it's just me, you, and Zach.
Yeah, it's just
Yes.
hold on. Let me. I killed the.